Hello guys, welcome to another session. So here we will be talking about the quantitative and qualitative methods. So the chapter research methods and analysis. Guys, we will be discussing this in detail. I'll tell you what you mean by quantitative methods, how positivists employed this, what do you mean by qualitative methods, how non-positivists use this, and how over a period of time post 1940s you see a mix of quantitative and qualitative, rather than following the theoretical purity, looking at the purpose of the research. You choose the method, you combine the methods, right? Sometimes you use quantitative method for research, and to understand you use qualitative methods, or for the research you use qualitative method, and to prove the validity you use quantitative method. So it depends on the purpose in future, like in after post like 1940s. Now one more point that I want to discuss is, guys, there are 1 minute, guys. Yeah, guys, there are hundreds of quantitative methods and there are hundreds of qualitative methods. So let's say they ask you one from that, which you are not aware. You don't want to get panic. Similarly, in qualitative method also, because that will be the case with everyone. Not everyone can prepare all these methods, so that you need to take dictionary, or you need to that in itself was a research topic. Okay, so hundreds of quantitative and qualitative method which you cannot prepare anyway. So if that kind of questions are asked, remember that will be the same for everyone. So we will be studying some examples of quantitative methods and qualitative methods when we talk about Durkheim, when we talk about Weber, like Westerhand's ideal types, comparative methods, right? Causal pluralism, causal probabilism, all these different methods we will be discussing. If you get question from that, you will be able to answer. For example, in 2010, at that time when they asked content analysis, now everyone know because it was a previous year question, but at that time, not many know. You just see the syllabus and you prepare that. So that's the same case with everyone. After coming out of the exam hall, everybody got surprised and everybody was talking about that. Similarly, there was a question about serendipity. If you know the word meaning, you will be able to write something. Otherwise, you cannot prepare that kind of question. So again, what I want to tell you is there's a big topic. We cannot complete it like that. But what we can do is we can understand what is quantitative method, what is qualitative method, what are the purpose, what are the elements of this, etc. If they ask specific, if it is from our topics that we are going to study, like Weber will be studying some and different thinkers will study some methods, then you will be able to answer. Otherwise, you just need to leave that question. Don't break your head. That's the same case with everyone. So see, the what you need to write is, when we talk about this method, uh, first three chapters, if you get question, talk about emergence and what the initial sociologists wanted to do and how they developed methods, and what was the method is all about, how they use quantitative method, why they use quantitative methods, why they want to make it similar to natural science, why they want to go for inductive approach, why they want to ensure objectivity. Because of these, they preferred quantitative method. But over a period of time, there were criticisms for use of quantitative methods in sociology, because you are studying human beings. The human beings have emotions and motives and other things which are qualitative in nature. So qualitative methods is more required, like that. So this is how the debate will comes. That if you understood that, you can write in the first paragraph for, let's say, 30-40 words, and then you proceed further, and then you give examples, then you give elements of quantitative methods, measurement, measurement of data, then analysis, and then interpretation, then theory building, inductive approach, and other things. Similarly, qualitative methods. And then you can make a comparison. Never want to talk about superiority or inferiority. Both are required, both are good. So, as I told you in the beginning itself, you will be using a combination of this method. So nowadays, you will be seeing the combination of the method rather than you sticking to a theoretical purity or anything. So combination of the approach is what more important in these days. Okay, so let's start with this session. See, guys, with the emergence of sociology as a distinct discipline, the quest for finding its scope and appropriate methodology that led to a number of perspectives which argued for use of different methods. And the debate surrounding the use of these methods was closely interlinked with the initial debate on the nature of sociology. So the question here is, what's the nature of sociology, right? And the initial emphasis on positivist approach, that is employing empiricism and inductivism, that prefer the use of facts which are quantifiable in nature. So initial approach was like positivist approach, they prefer inductivism, they prefer empiricism, they prefer quantifiable data. So the critique of positivists later, that approach, that led to development of non-positivism, and they prefer qualitative methods because they are dealing with understanding, they are dealing with human beings, human emotions, the meanings and the motives. So both these methods find their place in the context of different subject matter proposed by positivism and non-positivism. So in this context, we need to understand both these methods, we need to give importance to both these methods, and we need to understand the key principles of both these methods. So let's start with the quantitative method. See, if you see the quantitative methods, these methods employ a systematic scientific investigation of quantitative properties of a phenomena in order to develop models of theory. So when I talk about quantitative properties of a phenomena means something which is quantified, something which is measurable, something which can be dealt in terms of numbers. So the approach of these methods is to generate a quantified image of a phenomena under study. So you will try to talk about numbers here. So for example, if you're studying domestic violence, you talk in terms of numbers. How many women subjected to this domestic violence? If you talk about alcoholism, you try to reduce that in terms of quantified image, in terms of percentage or in terms of numbers. You study some accidents. Again, you try to understand that in terms of numbers. So you try to develop a quantified image of a phenomena under study. That means you will be in a position to deal with numbers. Why? Now, why you're dealing with numbers? Because if you can deal with numbers, you don't have any personal bias in that. You can ensure objectivity. That was one of the most important, requirement at that point of time. So what is more important in quantitative method? The process of measurement, right? You need to get that quantified image. You need to get the numbers. So the measurement, the process of measurement is central to quantitative methods because that provide that fundamental connection between empirical observation and the mathematical expression of quantitative relationship. So measurement is central, and for that you can use various tools and techniques. So the quantitative methods are used to generate quantitative data which are dealing with numbers. That's more important. Okay. So the quantitative methods are used to generate quantitative data dealing with numbers. And various techniques used by quantitative methods are surveys, interviews, questionnaires, schedules, etc. And these methods are generally applied for the purpose of data collection using sampling. So what is sampling and other things we'll be discussing in the next topic. So guys, you normally try to collect the data in terms of numbers. You try to generate the quantified image. You try to get the quantified data, quantitative data in terms of numbers. The next step is the interpretation of data. So in these methods, if you see, the interpretation is done with the help of proper representation of data using modern statistical techniques like various statistical techniques, and for that you can use tables, you can use graphs, you can use curves, and correlation methods. So that will lead to objective interpretation, and the stress on objectivity. You see, nowadays interpretation is very highly simplified with the help of AI, with the help of computers. So artificial intelligence and everything you can use. So interpretation is the next step. So once interpretation is done, then it is a theory building. So theory building in quantitative method draws from method of induction. So the emphasis is on development of theories based on cause and effect relationship. So establish cause and effect relationship, establish the theories. And the final testing of theory is also done with the use of data. So these are the 4 steps. Process of measurement is central. You use quantitative method for that because you need to get the quantitative data in terms of numbers. Then you need to go for interpretation. For that, you will use various techniques. And then you go for theory building, which is inductive in nature. Inductive means the same process you need to follow, right? And then testing is very fundamental. So what are the advantages of quantitative method? Let's quickly look at the advantage. The methods are considered objective as generalization is based on facts in terms of numbers. Very clear. There is no personal bias. It's objective. The methods are considered more scientific, especially if you consider it with natural science, because again, you are dealing with numbers, objectivity is ensured. Quantitative methods present an advantage of easy measurement as experts are not required for collection of data. You use certain tools and techniques which anyone can use. If you want to have a survey, you can even post it in a, you can send emails to people. You can, put that in a Google sheet. You can collect data just like that. You don't want an expert, right? So these methods can be used for huge population also. So when you're collecting numbers, you can even, I told you, from a Facebook post itself, you can collect large number of information. The validity and reliability is questionable, but it can be applicable to huge population. And it is very easy to check reliability and validity of the result generated because you're dealing in numbers. It can be testable, it can be replicated, right? The results can be regenerated as it's clearly based on the facts. So these are the advantages. Now, what are the limitations? What are the disadvantages? See, there are many non-measurable attributes like internal sides of a phenomena, like the meanings, emotions, sentiments. These cannot be studied by facts. These cannot be quantified. These cannot be, taken in terms of numbers, right? It cannot be quantified. There are non-measurable attributes which shape the social world that cannot be studied. So that's a limitation. So again, these methods are difficult to apply in situations where number of variables are very high. So that again is a limitation. Sometimes the variables are identified incorrectly also, right? Again, if you look at quantitative methods, they rely on data collected from both primary and secondary sources. Primary means direct information from the person. Secondary means indirect information, like you get from persons, relatives, friends, etc. It is difficult to check the correctness of even primary information. I don't know when I ask you a question whether you will give the same answer. I'm asking you about domestic violence, are you facing or not? Whether are you related to alcoholism or not? Will you give the right answer or not? That itself is a big question. So what about the secondary information? So you cannot rely on that information. Again, these methods are hard to apply in historical phenomena as the relevant data may not be available. So how can you study historical phenomena when data is not there? You cannot make comparison also. Apart from this, if you look at quantitative methods, they are accused of generating partial view of reality because you are not studying the non-measurable attributes. So these methods are again accused for involving subjectivity of investigator. Why? Because we talk about objectivity because you're collecting numbers, but which data to collect, from whom the information to get, all these are, what should be the sample size? Who decide this? It is the investigator. So investigator bias is involved with respect to which data to collect. Right? Now, coming to qualitative methods. See, when we talk about qualitative methods, they refer to examination, analysis, interpretation of observation for the purpose of discovering underlying meanings and patterns of relationship. So they focus on understanding meanings. They focus on, identifying the patterns of relationship. The qualitative methods in sociology, in fact, emerged in reaction to the excessive emphasis on quantitative methods used by positivist research. And these methods are often used to gain better understanding of non-measurable sociological attributes like meaning, sentiments, emotions, etc. Right? I told you there are non-measurable attributes which you cannot study by using quantitative approach. So the data generated here will be qualitative in nature. And what do you mean by that? The qualitative data is in the form of text and not numbers. So it is usually based on description of variables. So here you'll get explanation, which will be subjective in nature. Various techniques like observation, words to hand, we'll be discussing in Weber, narration, all these are used. So the data generated is in the abstract form because you get it as a description. You go and ask people, you get the description. Secondary sources are also used to collect qualitative information. Coming to interpretation. See, the interpretation of data in these methods is done in an analytical way using deduction. So there we discussed about inductive approach. Here it is deduction. In pure qualitative research, if you see, there is minimal use of methods in interpretation. They won't talk about methods, they won't talk about theory or anything. Similarly, in qualitative methods, they often reject the formulation of theories, and testing is done through reasoning. There is no such theories, it's understanding that matters. Right? There are non-positivists who followed the theoretical approach like Weber Mead, but they are not pure non-positivists. What are the advantages here? See, they are considered more significant in the light of generating complete understanding of reality. In general, these methods are considered as cheap if the purpose of research is confined, right? Not much expense. These methods are helpful in finding solution to the problems in a more pragmatic way because you're getting a detailed description of, let's say, if you're talking about domestic violence, you're getting a detailed understanding. It's not yes or no. It's all about how, why, what, and all these informations you're getting. Description, qualitative nature, right? What are the disadvantages? You need an expert for implementation, right? When we talk about these, you need to get the description, you need to take the relevant portions from that. You need an expert for that. But in quantitative, you can even send your assistant to collect data because you're getting yes or no only. You're getting a tick or cross. That's it. Again, difficulty in checking reliability validity is here. Why? Because these are not facts. These are not numbers. These are text. These are descriptions. So it may keep changing. The understanding keep changing. So there is a problem with subjective bias again from the interviewee and from the interviewer. Both will come. Again, more suitable for a specific micro phenomena. You cannot apply this to a large phenomena because sample size getting larger, it is going to be very difficult and expensive also to conduct study and very time consuming also. There is no theoretical possibility. That is one of the limitation again. So if you look at the fundamental difference, let me show you. So I hope you can see the screen, guys. You can see here. So if you look at quantitative, these are using numbers and statistics. Here, use text. Many observation because you get more data. Here, few observation. Little information because you get yes, no only. But here you get more description, the details. Then here makes inference from specific that data you collected to generalize it. And then here there is no concern with inference or theory. So here replicable analysis, right? Here they seek understanding. Here more formalized methods they use and less formalized methods they use. So this is a fundamental difference if you talk about. I hope this part is very clear. See, now again, they are both distinct, right? They talk about quantitative, they talk about qualitative, they talk about numbers, they talk about data, the facts and the text, right? And they talk about inductive approach, deductive approach, theory, no theory, testing, no testing, prediction, no prediction, right? All these differences are there. So it is distinct, but based on, again, opposite theoretical assumptions, positivism, non-positivism. But can you talk about superiority or inferiority here? Both are required. In fact, both are complementary rather than contradictory. So write this line. Although both quantitative and qualitative methods are distinct and based on opposite theoretical assumptions, but while comparing both, the relationship between the two is understood to be complementary rather than contradictory. Nowadays, both are used, as I told you in the beginning, for the purpose of sociological research, depending upon the requirement. Right? For example, quantitative methods are frequently used to test the understanding generated by qualitative methods. Sissorial example I have given you many times. Right? Similarly, qualitative methods can be used to understand the meanings of data generated by quantitative methods. Quite often, researchers use both the methods in such a way that are virtually impossible to separate. So rather than sticking to theoretical purities, now you use methods based on convenience, based on the purpose of the research. So that's about this session, guys. And in case if you're looking for sociology mentorship or test series or the course, details are given in the description. Check out that. See you in the next video.